going on, Bengals fans? Welcome into this at-home edition of Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields, and coming up on today's show, just wanted to break down some mandatory minicamp winners and losers. This is an at-home style video, obviously, so it'll be a little bit different than our typical winners and losers videos, but I do think there are some in each group coming out of mandatory minicamp that did wrap up the other day. We're sitting here on Friday, June 13th right now, and before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. It's youtube.com/Bengals TV. We will have you covered throughout the remainder of the offseason and plenty of videos coming for training camp as well, and I think there's a lot of interesting storylines when you're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals going through training camp here in 2025. So let's actually start with the losers here because there's two of them and we all know who they are, and we're just going to tackle those two right off the top. Shemar Stewart here is the number one loser, obviously. And Stewart left mandatory minicamp. He skipped the last day, and the reports out there from Kelsey Conway and others, apparently he did this to be less of a distraction to his teammates, which seems kind of ridiculous, right? Clearly, this whole situation is a distraction with Shemar Stewart, just kind of how things go here in the NFL. But it is certainly increasingly frustrating that you are seeing this happen with a rookie player that he hasn't even played a down of football for the Cincinnati Bengals. So he left. Obviously, as we've talked about here at the channel, there is a dispute in his contract. The Bengals are trying to put new language into his contract, something that they haven't done previously for first-round picks. Essentially, is protecting the organization more so than the player. If there were a default in the contract from Shemar Stewart, that's something like a non-football injury or troubles with the law. In those instances, with this new language, the Bengals would be able to take away and void some of the guaranteed money that Shemar Stewart is owed. Now, lots of people in the media and just out there on the internet are absolutely attacking the Bengals for how they're handling this situation. I've been pretty vocal here on the channel saying, yeah, the Bengals aren't innocent whatsoever, or I shouldn't say they're not innocent completely, right? But I do think if I'm picking sides here, I'm on Cincinnati's side as opposed to Shemar Stewart's side. And Stewart, in my opinion, is not handling this the best way that he could. Keep in mind, Demetrius Knight Jr., he hasn't signed his rookie contract either, but he signed his injury waiver, so he's out there practicing. Stewart, for whatever reason, won't sign the waiver. He's not out there practicing. I think this has been a massive storyline across the entirety of the NFL. Now, people are quick to judge Cincinnati because they're an organization historically that's been, let's just say it how it is, a bit of a dumpster fire, right? They've known for being cheap or whatever. If they didn't have this reputation, I don't think people nationally would be attacking them as much as they are here with this Shemar Stewart situation. So the Bengals are trying to protect themselves. They're trying to put new language into his contract, and obviously I get it from Stewart's perspective, right? Because he's like, why are you doing this to me? You've never done this in the past. Why are you trying to set a precedent now? Obviously, very frustrating for him. But when you hear the clips of him talking with media members around his locker, it just doesn't sound like that's not the conversation that I would be liking to hear, right? This is a guy that's a first-round pick. You took him 17 overall. He hasn't played a down of football for you, and he's sitting there bad-mouthing the organization. I get it. He's frustrated, but I think the attitude that he has had during his press conference, or not even press conferences, just during his opportunities to talk with the media, I've not been impressed with whatsoever. So obviously that is a massive distraction for Cincinnati going into training camp. And Chase Sr. was talking about this here for Chat Sports with us. There is a possibility that he could sit out the entirety of the season and then have an opportunity to get redrafted. I don't believe that has ever happened in the NFL. Maybe it has once or twice, but there is language in the collective bargaining agreement that allows this to happen if Shemar Stewart would indeed want to sit out throughout the entirety of the season if he wasn't happy to be with the Cincinnati Bengals. But I'm going to sit here and say there's a 0% chance that happens. This is going to get worked out in some way or another. It's just unfortunate that things have turned this ugly this quickly with Shemar Stewart's tenure in Cincinnati. And again, this isn't Trey Hendrickson, right? Which we'll get to him in a second. This is a guy that was picked in the first round in 2025. Hasn't done anything for your football team yet. And he's sitting here acting like, he's got all this pull. Like, no, yeah, this team took you in the first round and you haven't provided any service to this point. You see guys all across the league. Travis Hunter, I don't believe he's signed his deal yet. He signed his injury waiver. He's out there practicing. So obviously this isn't just Shemar Stewart's decision. It's his camp. It's his team. It's his agent. They're trying to, push this narrative here. And hopefully for them it works out. But obviously now this is a massive distraction for the Cincinnati Bengals. And more so than the distraction itself, I think the Bengals got plenty of productive work done in mandatory minicamp. But Shemar Stewart needs that work, as we've talked about a lot here at the channel, right? This guy had 4.5 sacks throughout the entirety of his college career, right? It was a traits guy in the draft, right? It was a risky pick for Cincinnati, and now it's kind of coming back to bite him because their risky pick isn't even going out there practicing with his football team. So he's the number one loser here, obviously. Hopefully he is ready to go for training camp, and we can kind of move past this situation. But couldn't have been really a worse start for Shemar Stewart's time here in Cincinnati. Another loser, obviously, because he wasn't there, is Trey Hendrickson. And no new developments on the Trey Hendrickson situation, right? I think you're in a spot now with Trey Hendrickson where you're trying to play this waiting game, and we'll see exactly if he can creep back with this football team at some point. Will he show up for training camp or not? It seems like the Bengals are pretty set on, Trey Hendrickson sitting there, and he's saying, all right, either trade me or pay me the market value, and the Bengals are sitting there saying, well, we're sorry you feel this way. We have made our offer. You have your current contract. You are still under contract, and they seem like they're going to wait this thing out. I would be surprised if the Bengals budged here, right? Because as this thing continues to trickle on, if they budged right before the season and then paid him, then you're like, well, why did you even do this to begin with, right? I don't know. I think they're banking on Trey Hendrickson budging. I think the $28 million per year offer is close to being fair. All right. If they gave him 30, I think that's the number for me. 30. And if you're Trey Hendrickson, you got to sign it. Obviously, Danielle Hunter's getting 35. Myles Garrett is getting 40. TJ Watt's going to be getting more than 35. Crosby's in 35 range as well. But it's the Danielle Hunter contract, as I've talked about here on the channel, that really is causing this issues, I think, because Trey Hendrickson's an unbelievable player. He is a game wrecker. We've seen that over the past few years. Do I think he deserves as much money as a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett? No. All right. Or TJ Watt? No. But Danielle Hunter is getting $35 million. That's no disrespect to Danielle Hunter, but I think we all know very clearly that Trey Hendrickson is a better, more productive player than Danielle Hunter. So he's the second loser here. And beyond that, I don't have any more losers to discuss on as far as winners and losers go for mandatory minicamp, right? Those two guys weren't there. Shemar Stewart was there for a little bit but didn't do anything. So that automatically buckets those two guys into that loser column. Continue with our show here in a second. Do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals T-Shirt hoodies are out. They're on sale. They're available. You can go get them. We'll put that link in the comment section and description of today's show. Chatsports.com/Bengals Hoodie T-Shirt / and they're on sale. It's the best part about them. I believe they're $20, $30 off from what they currently were marked. Short sleeve with a hood. Pretty cool. Obviously at-home video, so we don't have a picture here, but we'll put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. All right, let's talk winners here, kind of going in inverse what we typically do here at the channel. There are several winners, unfortunately, and once again for Cincinnati, all the conversation around these organized team activities here in the offseason is the guys that weren't there, right? The distractions between ownership, front office, and the personnel out there on the football field. But some winners, I think, first you got to start with Joe Burrow, right? He's out there, he's healthy, he's with his boys, and we'll just throw all three of them in there. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as well. They've all been out there. They've all been getting work. And that makes me really, really excited because think about how great that trio has been throughout their time here in Cincinnati, and they've never really had an offseason like this. You've had issues with Joe Burrow's health, right? Obviously, the knee as a rookie. You had the appendectomy after that, right? The wrist, of course, the calf, several things with Joe Burrow have prohibited him from having, healthy full off seasons. Then you have the contract distractions the past couple of years with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins thing has been going on for a couple of years, right? And then he was getting tagged. He was obviously frustrated with that. Now he's got his deal. He's happy. Jamar obviously was showing up last year, but he wasn't doing anything. Now you have all three of those guys together working, and think about how great they were last year. Now they have a full off season. Fingers crossed they're able to stay healthy throughout the entirety of it. Nobody is more of a winner than Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Beyond that, we've heard some good things about T.J. Slaton, your defensive tackle that you brought in free agency from Green Bay. You saw Joe Burrow in his press conference speak really highly of Slaton. You heard Dan Horde talk about him a lot as well as a guy that really has come in and provided a lot of veteran leadership there at that nose tackle spot. And that's what you need. You need a new leader on that defense. With Jermaine Pratt out the door, he, filled the void considerably from that leadership role. He's gone. Someone else is going to have to step up. TJ Slaton appears like he could be one of those guys, despite the fact it being his first year here in Cincinnati. And hopefully he can provide a lot more production at that nose tackle spot as well. Obviously, the Sheldon Rankins situation was a disaster last year, and he kind of had a lot of rookies into the fold there with Chris Jenkins Jr. and McKinley Jackson. Those two guys are going to play a lot. But hopefully, TJ Slayton can really take the bull by the horns here, be that guy to lead the defensive line, especially with the uncertainty around Trey Hendrickson's situation. I think TJ Slayton absolutely is a winner. I think Dax Hill absolutely is a winner as well, right? Dax Hill's a guy. He says he's hoping to be ready to go for training camp. Obviously, he had the significant knee injury that cost him most of last year. Only played 5 games. The Bengals showed their appreciation, love, respect, admiration for Dax Hill. They pick up that 5th-year option. By the way, I thought it was a remarkable decision there by Cincinnati to do that. They're going to be leaning on him to be their lead defensive back on this football team. So Hill said that he feels good about being able to be ready to go for training camp, but there is uncertainty where he's going to play, right? You're seeing Al Golden play all kinds of guys in all different spots. And I think that's going to continue here as he tries to figure out fully what he has on the defensive side of the football. And you're going to see all those DBs play in different spots, right? We saw Cam Taylor-Britt during OTAs. He was lining up at that nickel spot, right? You're going to see Dax Hill moved around. You're going to see Josh Newton moved around. DJ Turner II moved around as well. Feeling out process for the DBs with the understanding of, hey, we got to get a lot better than we were last year. Final winner here is the offensive line. You've heard some good stuff from all the players, Ted Karras specifically. And Ted Karras is one of those guys where, we look at Joe Burrow. When he speaks, we listen, and we usually take it to be the truth, right? I view Ted Karras in the exact same light. In that regard, he had some interesting comments kind of involving Shemar Stewart's situation, and then kind of what Scott Peters has brought to the table as their offensive line coach. Really have been impressed with Ted Karras, and it looks like Scott Peters is doing a tremendous job with that unit there on the offensive line. You hear a lot about the hand-to-hand combat, right? It's been well documented, the martial arts background of Scott Peters, and he's kind of bringing that in here to the offensive line. So it's definitely a shift in mojo, a shift in technique as well. We'll see if it pays off and ultimately helps them pass protect better here. But looks like as we continue here into camp, right now the 2 leaders for that guard spot, it almost seems like Dylan Fairchild, your rookie out of Georgia, is a shoe-in for the left guard spot. It kind of feels like a Ford versus Lucas Patrick battle at the other side. We'll see if Cordell Volson can kind of work himself into the equation or not. But that doesn't exactly get us fired up, but hopefully Scott Peters can take that next step with this group and put him in a good position to protect Joe Burrow this season. There's our at-home video. A little winners and losers action, kind of hit all the important notes there. We'll have plenty more videos coming for you guys in the future. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now.